Live to this now. Eskom's acting CEO Khalid Kasim is set to brief us on the company's operational performance.
After this winter, I think Lawrence and the colleagues at Duva, they've done exceptionally well. We are seeing stability of Duva. The Duva that we had a year ago that was tripping every day, it's staying on load now. And that's what is creating some stability and giving us levels of confidence that as we move forward, we can build from what they have achieved there. So is Majuba. And then the latest on the block now was Tutuga. Tutuga, you will recall that it was the worst plant in generation a year ago, even up to almost 6 months ago. So we have indicated in May when we met here that we have introduced new leadership there, under the leadership of Bruce. They didn't do well in the first 3 months. I mean, throughout the winter period, Tutuga was on average running 1 unit at almost half load as well. But since the beginning of this month, they have moved to 4 units and they've been doing exceptionally well. And the good thing again is that it's not about bringing the unit. So when the unit comes on load, it stays on load. So that for me is a great plus of what the team have achieved there. Because previously you would see Tutuga plant coming on in the morning and then it trips in the afternoon, coming back and then it trips the next morning. But now I think it's starting to give that confidence also to the system operator that if Tutuga said we will be on load tomorrow and then we will deliver certain megawatts. And that's what we wanted to also, apart from external, also internal within Eskom, that we need to build that confidence that we are turning the corner on some of these plants. Okay, Kendall is one plant that we are still focusing on. We are assisting the team there to deal with some of the challenges that they are having there. Kusile, I will talk about Kusile. I think we all know the story of Kusile. But the good thing at Kusile as well is that the unit that was on load, which is Unit 4, has been doing very well as well, delivering consistent power. And that's what has helped us as well to go through this winter without the major impact that was anticipated, because we still didn't have the other 3 Kusile and Kubek units on load. I think the Kubek story, Caleb spoke about it. I think what I want to share regarding Kubek is that we have now completed the replacement of all the steam generators at Kubek. A lot of lessons for us that we are taking forward to the next unit together with the contractor that is working on that. So we've got approval from the regulator over the past weekend to start to reload the core at Kubek. So we are now starting with the commissioning of the plant after we have done with the maintenance. So the plan is still to have this unit back by the 3rd of November after following all the tests that need to be done there. So at least now we can put behind us the issue of the steam generator replacement. So Kubek is going to be a straight swap. When this one comes in, Unit 2 will come off by the 7th of November to also undergo the similar experience. But we are hopeful that the lessons that we have learned from these previous outages. So we have had an engagement with the main contractor executive between myself and Caleb about 2 weeks ago, where they have also taken us through the lessons learned together with the Kubek team. So we are quite positive that it's not going to be as bad as this one. This outage was very bad for Kubek. It has also hurt us in terms of our aspirations to recover the EAF, because by this time we were anticipating that the Kubek unit would have been running. And I think also the issue of mobilization, Caleb spoke about it, the NICOM support. So they've been with us now. They started to understand some of the issues that we have asked them to assist with. So hopefully we will start seeing an increase resources coming from that space. So the Kusile units on this middle column there is what is now, I've said that we have recovered at Tutuga. We plan to have them at about 1,500 megawatts by the end of this year. So it's quite pleasing to see that they have managed now to get to about 1,600 already as we speak now. So we are looking at those incremental megawatts from them as part of this journey to recovery. So Kusile Unit 1, 2, and 3, we have been working on the temporary stacks. The media was with us with the Minister of Electricity about 3 weeks ago on site, where we have indicated to the public that we are almost done by that time with the temporary stacks, and we were ready to bring the first unit, which is Unit 3, back online by the 14th of October. I'm quite pleased that the team, our contractor partner there and our project team, they've done exceptionally well there. In June, we said the first unit was going to come in towards the end of November, and then with the last on the 24th of December. So I'm quite pleased to say that we are ready to start the first unit now at Kusile. All the contracting work is completed. We're just waiting for the authorizations now to come through in terms of the appeal that was received by both the minister and the district department. Yesterday, during the briefing, I did indicate that we just received the feedback from the Minister of Environmental Affairs and Forestry. So then it goes to the district, because the licensing of the plant is get issued by the local and district municipalities. So they are finalizing that process. So I'm quite hopeful that at least by tomorrow or so that we should get those feedback from the district and local municipalities that we can start bringing, because it's critical. I think the Minister of Electricity was saying Kusile is so critical in our recovery. So the team is ready now, but obviously we can't put any fires in until we get this authorization from the authorities, and they are working very hard to give us that, because they also understand the impact of this plant. So the first unit, we're still planning to come in depending on when we get these authorizations, then we will start. I'm sure early in the month we should have this unit. It's been standing for quite some time, so there's a lot of commissioning and some teething issues that we might experience, but at least we now know that we are there with the first unit. There's still work that is being done on the other 2 units. So, but we're also confident that the second unit will be on as well by next month, because that's what we need to boost our EAF. And also, as these Kusile units are coming in, we are also now in the maintenance season. So we need them also to balance the system as they are coming through. Kusile Unit 5, the unit that was damaged as well last year with the air heater, so the workers completed that. We did indicate when the minister was briefing the nation as well that we needed to swap this unit to prioritize the commercial units on top of this one. But while we are waiting for the authorization, the project team is continuing to commissioning the Unit 5 at Kusile, so the team is not waiting there. So we will use all the opportunities, but when there is competition between this unit and the first three will take precedence or preference in terms of that commissioning of them. So we are still planning to bring that Unit 5 by December, because we needed to swap it around with these commercial units. On the long-term focus, Medupi Unit 4, that is the unit that was damaged almost 2 years ago now. We are working now to bring that unit, still committed for the next year in July, to bring it back into, and then also Unit 5 then around the same time will become commercial. I've spoken to Unit 2 at Quebec. We can move on to the next slide. So with this Kusile and also coming from where we were in May with an average of almost 18,000 megawatts to where we are in September, around 15, 16,000. So there has been that 2,000 clawback over the period as well. And then if you factor that throughout this period, we had this 2,100 from the 3 units at Kusile as part of that average. Now, as we are starting to bring them in, we have factored that to say, look, going forward, we are looking at the average of about 14,000 and a half. Obviously, internally, we will drive to be below that, but we know that as we are entering summer now, there's other difficulties that come through into the system. One of them, I was talking to the manager of national control yesterday. We were discussing Matimba as well, that Matimba has got the issues with vacuum in summer that goes to about 1,200. So that's what will also is factored onto those ones, those numbers. And as we speak now, you know, the summer as it comes, I mean, the first rains that we had in Cape Town, the major incident, a disaster that it has resulted in us not being able to run the Palmit plant. So the Palmit plant was affected by the storm in the Cape Town, but we should be back by early next week on that one. But those are the issues that says that, you know, our plans get tested by everything, the weather, the everything else. We are going to the rainy season. Those are the questions we've been asked to say, how are you planning for that, you know? So there's plans that we can put in place, but if something like what happened in Cape Town happened to any of the plant, you know, those are the risks that we will have to look at. But we are confident that if we can keep our availability total below 14.5, the levels of load shedding will be much, much reduced as well as we proceed. And given the fact that the stations that were previously unreliable, I mean, I said we ran through most of the winter with Tutuga running on average 1 unit. So those are the all issues that we are factoring to say, you know, we will have some teething problems as we're commissioning this Kusile unit after I've been standing for so long. But we are quite confident that, you know, the motivations is there in the stations. Teams are starting to believe in themselves that, I mean, if the Tutuga team, I'm sure a year ago, they did never believe that they can achieve what they have achieved within the space of 6 months as well. So now is the idea is to see how do we build from this one. And that's what we want to see, and we continue to support the teams. I think, yeah, that is the storyline here to say we are looking at 14.5 on average. Then on that one, the load losses, I mean, the load shedding will be much, much reduced, while also we continue to push for the much, much lower unavailability of the fleet. Okay, let's move on to the next. This is just to talk to some of the highlights that I've also spoken to and some of the progress. We're working very well with the Energy Council members as well. They've been to our OCGTs looking to see if there's any gaps that they can pick up there, and then gave some advice to our teams. I'm happy to say that they were quite happy with how our teams are managing this OCGTs as well. So, but we open up to say, let's continue. If they've got some people that can have some better ideas, they are part of our teams. We meet with them every week. And then they are also in some of the other stations, like I've said. I've spoken about Kusile recovery. And then in terms of the highlight as well, you know, throughout the winter, those stations there, Camden being one of the oldest stations, has done exceptionally well. I think Justice and the team, Camden has been really the star performer on our old fleet, because we have seen some exceptional performance from Camden. And then Peking and Letabos, I always say to them, to Karabo and Avi, that we don't expect anything than what they are giving there. So they continue to do well. I did speak to Duva Majuba Also Hendrina and in Tutuga. Hendrina was one of those stations that were also earmarked for shutdowns, doing exceptionally well now. We're currently busy with outages on that station to try and make sure that continuously we can build from that plant. I think the 60% average EAF is pinned. That's why we are so ready now to make sure that the Kusile unit comes in, because those are the big units. We know that Quebec is going to be out for the rest of the year. The benefit that we could have got from Quebec is no longer there. So hence we are now counting on Kusile, 4 units, including the new unit. The new unit is not going to count into the EAF, but it will help to stabilize the grid as well. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Yeah, I want to close on this slide. I did speak to it. Quebec, we have spoken about it to say we are still online to return this unit by beginning of November, the 3rd of November. Unfortunately, it didn't give us the megawatts that we expected earlier on, but yeah, a lot of lessons from that. Kusile, that 288, it included the Unit 5 as well by end of December. So we're hopeful that by the end of this week, we should have been given permission to start with the return to service of this Kusile. Maybe let me just also clarify there, this one is talking to what is sent out into the grid. The generated, you will see in the minister's report, it was talking about 800. Here we talk 720 because some of the megawatts are used within the plant itself. And then Tutuga, I said we were targeting to Tutuga to claw back about 1,500 for this year. Pleasing to see now that the past few weeks Tutuga has been giving us on average 1,600. So we are starting to see some positive trends there at Tutuga as well. And then the last big one is going to be Medupi Unit 4 next year. So the drive is really to get that one, because if where Medupi is performing now, this 720 is going to be key for us to realize our recovery. And then the rest of the information, they just talk to some of the partial losses that we are dealing with as well from different stations. So that is really our plan. Kusile, critical for us. That's where the focus is. We have got the teams. Luckily at Kusile, we still got our contractor partners that were building the plant. So they are part of the recovery, because we realized that to bring in, there were 5 units beginning of this month. So now the one is back. We've got 4 still need to bring. So a lot of challenges that will come with that. So in terms of resources and everything also, we have got compact with our partners as well to support the recovery of these power stations. And I must say all of them, they are on board and they are supporting the recovery of this Kusile plant. And then that's where we will get more benefit as we move forward throughout this summer as well. So thank you very much. I must hand over to Mr. Vala.
Thank you, Zwide. Good afternoon, colleagues and colleagues from the media. If we can just move on. Coming from the supply side, I think Beggy has outlined the plans that are being undertaken. So we on the demand side, we also need to do a bit in terms of managing the demand. So over and above the current base that we have of demand side interventions that we have rolled out over the years of about 4.5 gigawatts, in the year 2023-2024, we're targeting an additional 250 megawatts that we want to build as part of the base. So there are 6 initiatives that we are looking at in achieving this 250 megawatts. So from load shifting, load clipping, We're looking at 60 megawatts. On the residential load management, we're looking at an additional 30 megawatts. On energy efficiency programs, we're looking at 50 megawatts, and on the demand response, 50, and on the residential mass rollout, in terms of energy efficiency, we're looking at 60 megawatts. So in total, that gives us the 250 megawatts. So in terms of progress to date, we are in the process of finalizing the system operator in terms of having an incentivized demand management program, which we had launched in April 2023. Now this demand management program, we're looking at targeting various interventions. Now we are incentivizing those who would take part at a rate of 3 rand per megawatt and at 41 cents per kilowatt. So the proposals thereof, they are currently on the Eskom website. Currently we've got 17 projects that are on the go as part of this program. Where technically feasible, we also accommodate some exclusion from load shedding, but this must be aligned with what can be excluded in terms of NRSO 48.9. In addition to that, we are rolling out our fleet of smart meters. What we're seeking to exploit as an opportunity is the ability of what smart meters present to us, and this is our ability to remotely manage demand. So what we had done, we had initiated a pilot project in 4 ways, whereby we had engaged with the residents of 4 ways in lieu of load shedding stages 1 to 4. We then, at the behest of the system operator, we then give a signal to the people in 4 ways to reduce their consumption. We then reduce their meters from being 60 amps to to 10 amps, which is what the smart meter capability is putting on our hands. So now again, you may ask what can be done with 10 amps, quite a lot. With 10 amps, you can actually manage to keep some of your lights going. You can keep your TV going. Your Wi-Fi keeps on, and more importantly, on the streets, the traffic lights are working, so it helps us to manage the traffic congestion. Over and above that, we are intensifying our educational and behavioral change programs. We are rolling out the Eskom energy efficiency programs and power LEDs, specifically to try and influence behavior change. With the schools, we are running a schools program with the Energy Ambassador program. Again, it's just to ensure that we inculcate the culture of saving on energy. And lastly, we'd like to thank our customers for the positive response that we have seen. Now, part of what we've noted is that, yes, I think when we presented the winter outlook, there was horror stories of stages 8 and whatever. But we've never really got into those stages. But thankfully, in part, over and above what we've done on the supply side, the demand side part has also contributed. If we move to the next slide, I think over and above, there is interventions on the demand side. Next slide, please. We are intensifying the normalization and of the existing small-scale embedded generators. We are incentivizing customers to have their own installations. Now, with these installations, it allows customers to export some of the excess energy. And with that, currently we have the net billing framework, which is we've got as an approved product. Over and above that, we've got the banking as a product whereby you bank the energy that you would have exported onto the grid. We have successfully deployed our first microgrid in the Northern Cape. And now this unit has allowed us to connect a community that has been that is far flung from the existing infrastructure. So this gives us quite a number of opportunities, specifically in dealing with some of the issues around load shedding. On the wheeling side, we've got the traditional wheeling arrangement, but we've also have introduced piloted a new product called the virtual wheeling, as it was publicized in the media in the last couple of weeks. We have been working with Vodacom on this particular project, and we have successfully concluded that pilot. And with that, it also allows us then to go on a large rollout. Now, how this virtual wheeling works is that let's take the example of Vodacom. They've got sparsely populated installations across the country. So what we do is just basically aggregate all the consumption into sort of one aggregated point, and then on the base of that, then we can then do the billing that talks to that. Over and above that, with the wheeling, we're also facilitating some of the bilateral arrangements whereby there's bilateral power purchase agreements that get signed between two parties. We then provide the network to facilitate that wheeling. So that wheeling framework has been concluded, so that it's available. Then we've got the standard offer whereby you can actually sell off your excess energy to Eskom as an offer. And then lastly, we have got the community cooperatives whereby we are trying to deal with the issues of electricity theft and energy losses because we believe that that is part of the significant problem when it comes to how we manage what is available on the supply side and how we manage the demand side. So in summary, colleagues, this is what we have done on the demand side. At this point, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Mr. Skeepers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bala. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for this opportunity. What I'm going to share is a brief review of the winter performance against what we had as various scenarios, and then we'll talk about the outlook for this summer of 2023. As indicated on the graph before you, during winter 2023, which is a period beginning April up to the end of August, we spent 43 hours of the time having the unplanned losses lower than the 18,000 megawatts. That was the worst case scenario. But you will see graphically that there are periods when we did exceed that, but that is far less than the rest of the time that was basically spent within the envelope. We had a threshold of 15,000 megawatts, and you will note that there are a few occasions when we dropped even below that, but that is fairly rare. In the majority of the time, we're between the 15,000 and perhaps 17,500. On average, if you look at that period during the evening peaks, we were having 16,420 compared to around 16,550 in the previous winter. So the graph indicates to you as well that there has been volatility in the breakdowns, which is really one of the areas that we, from a system operator point of view, have to be able to deal with. So the intent of the outlook as we do it in the different scenarios is really to help strengthen the resilience of our plans, to allow us to be able to react in the event that we have higher levels of unplanned outages, as you can understand. So this is not intended to be a prediction or a projection. It's really scenarios to test what would happen if we find ourselves in a particular space. The other point that you will note from the graph is that we don't stay constant, so there's no straight line here. The system is dynamic, and hence our plans have to be robust so that we can respond quickly should the need arise. Let's go to the next slide, please. So if you look then at the past winter, what this graph is illustrating is the number of load shedding days that we experienced and the levels of load shedding in each month. And you will note that we had 55 days at stage 3 and 42 days at stage 4, and regrettably we also had 39 days at stage 6. But you will also recall that when we did the scenarios, we had said if we exceed the 18,000, the chances are we would actually go into stage 7 or 8. And I think based on the performance that we've achieved, we didn't get into those higher levels, which I think we must commend the generation team for their efforts. If we move then to the next slide, please, now looking at summer, what we are reflecting here is the outlook for the performance in the previous summer, and you will note that we actually had very high levels of outages, but you will see that in the tail end that tended to drop down somewhat. So for purposes of the summer 2023 outlook, we have put together the analysis looking at 14,500 up to 17,500, and to assess what would happen if we get into those spaces. And you will have noted in terms of the submission by Mr. Nxumalo that a lot of effort is going into retaining some of the units that are out, especially Kusile, and that is something that, and the projections are that we should be landing between 14 and 15,000 megawatts if those plans deliver as we would like them to. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So if you look at the analysis then, looking at the 3, which is looking at 14,500, 16,000, and then 17,500, what we are reflecting here is the levels of load shedding that we would expect. So you will note under the 14,500 scenario, we would have fewer days of load shedding, nothing more than 20 days in any one month, and the lower stages of load shedding ranging between stage 3 and 4. But as I've indicated, the system is dynamic, so the chances are you will move in and out of different ranges or scenarios. If we were to be in the 16,000 megawatt scenarios, we would have up to stage 6 load shedding, but the majority of the time we would probably experience stage 5. And obviously, if you are higher at 17,500, you would hit up to stage 7 load shedding. And the important thing to also note is that the numbers that we reflect here are based on mathematical modeling. They are not a projection or a prediction. It's really saying, if you follow the trend, these are the things that potentially could happen, and this is where you would find yourself. And the intention being to help us put the necessary plans in place to respond, whether it's to have sufficient diesel generation, other demand-side measures to help us balance the system and reduce the impact of load shedding over the period. So that is what we have to share on the outlook for summer. I'll hand over to Mr. Kasim to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Sekhamotso. If we move to the next slide. So I think firstly to the public, Eskom does apologize for the inconvenience to the economy, the livelihoods, and the impact it's having on everyone in the country, and the impact on GDP, etc. Let's also understand and appreciate we implement load shedding to manage the system, to avoid a blackout, as we've explained in the winter period. Just to reiterate why we're confident on the 14,500 megawatts in terms of a base case, we believe as the Eskom management, and more importantly, the generation people that are running the power stations, why it's a credible base case. Like Sekhamotso and the team has presented, in winter, the average UCLF was around 16,500. This outlook for summer is saying 14,500. And why are we saying that? Because the fundamental point is that you are bringing back over 2,000 megawatts of Kusile, the 3 units plus Unit 5. That is why we are confident with the 14,500. And my colleagues can confirm, in doing this outlook of these scenarios, we on the Kusile side had the assumptions of the units returning from the temporary stacks coming online at the end of November and December. The fact what Becky Namalo has said, we are now ready to fire the Kusile Unit 3 followed by Unit 1 and Unit 2, which is effectively, ladies and gentlemen, 2 months earlier than what is built into that outlook. So we see that as a positive and an upside. That is a key and important factor to take into account. And let's also remember in that scenario on the slide, at 14,500, it does mean over the summer period, 116 days of load shedding out of 213. On the positive side, when I looked at the 17,500 scenario, September had stage 7 load shedding. We're really sitting at the 27th of September. We're convinced that we will get through September. Then on that worst case scenario in terms of that outlook was stage 6. From a management perspective, yes, we've got our base case, but we are making every effort to even reduce below the 14,500. If I recall, on the 23rd of September, it was the first time in a number of months that the generation unplanned outages dropped below 12,500. Why is that important? It demonstrates now that one, Eskom and the power stations can achieve that lower than 14,500, and that is the challenge that we have given to Becky and his team, as well as everyone that is working in generation. Let's also not underestimate the support that we have from transmission, the system operator, and Monde in terms of demand-side management, communication, and power alert. Dealing with the impact on the system is not a generation issue. It's an Eskom issue, and we need to work as one united organization to address this. Yes, we have the support of government. The key to all of this is for the staff in Eskom to start believing that we are in control of this and we can reduce the stages of load shedding going forward. We've seen the positive implications that have come through the winter period. We are convinced and committed to that base case, but we're looking to improve on it as quick as possible, but doing it in a way that is safe for our staff and most importantly, safe in terms of the system operator and managing the integrity of the transmission grid. Colleagues, thank you for the opportunity. Daphne, let me hand back to you. Cheers.
Thank you very much, members of the panel or my panelists today. We've arrived at that point in time where it's the question and answer. So this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to allow 4 rounds of question. Just to note that this session is a hybrid session, so we've got other members of the media that have connected virtually. So we will have to take questions as well from them. However, those that have connected virtually, please do post your questions, or we've seen some coming through, but please continue posting them on the chat on the MS Teams. I will start with obviously 5 questions in the room and then take 5 virtually, and then we will then go for get the panelists to answer the questions that they've asked. So I will also take into consideration the number of questions per journalist that are asked. I'm not going to restrict you today. You will ask as many questions as you want. But we've got a time limit, colleagues, and let's be just fair as well to each other and give each other an opportunity to at least ask a question today. So I'll start in the room. Yes, from readers, I see. Please, when you ask your question, just tell us where the media house that you work for and your name, please. Thank you. We'll start in the house and permit. Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Promit Mukherjee from Reuters. My first question is that it's quite commendable that you said it will be 14,500 megawatt in the best case scenario, but I want to know that which plants or which units tell you that they are on the borderline, which can lead to maybe higher levels of unplanned losses and hence the load shedding. Secondly, I'm sorry I didn't follow, but what was the average unplanned losses for the summer months of last year? That is what I want to know. That is all for now. I will come back in the queue later.
Thank you, Promit. There's another question.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm here. It's Diabo Seto from SABC TV News. I just need just to understand the energy availability factor, Mr. Nguman. What are we currently sitting on as at 27 September? And also the minister is approaching financiers with regards to transmission and also expanding the grid. In a typical scenario, once, let's say you get those financiers on board and you get the participation from the private sector, how many megawatts of power from renewable energy typically are we expecting to be able to accommodate in the grid, and how will that make things better for South African households and businesses? Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi and, oh, all right. The mic is already gone. Sorry. Yes, you can continue. Yes, please.
Okay, so my name is Naledi Ngobo and I am from the SABC. So my question also relating to just what Diabo had asked in terms of the financing of the grid. We understand that the transmission financing could be in the region of around 200 billion. What would be the anticipated interest payments on that? And who are the financiers who have showed somewhat of an interest currently? My other question is regarding the planned maintenance. What is the amount of planned maintenance that you foresee for the summer period that you will be undertaking? And just finally, in terms of bringing back Kusile, some of the Kusile units, you did mention that there are some environmental authorization and obligations that you might need waived in order to bring back some of those units on stream. In the case that you don't secure that authorization, does that mean that we can expect more load shedding? And are you saying that we don't expect stage 6 at all for the summer period, if you can confirm that?
Thank you, Heidi. And Ntokozo, I think, will be the last person, and then we'll take the virtual questions. Thank you.
It's Heidi Jokos from ENCA. Just on the lady's question, when are you guys waiting, when are you expecting to get authorization, if that's the word, from the Department of Environment on Kusile? And then just staying on Kusile, not so long ago, there were issues of theft. I know people were arrested, but what exactly is happening with regards to that? Have more people been arrested? Who's being investigated? And how was that even allowed? Or how did that even happen? given that the SANDF are there. But I've asked this question before, and I just don't think the answer has been very satisfactory. I want to ask in terms of exemptions when it comes to water, because the city of Joburg is really battling. Joburg Water, Rand Water, they've all said it's obviously amplified by load shedding, and a lot of these communities have asked whether or not it is at all possible to have these areas exempted like hospitals are, because water supply is obviously a huge problem. If you could maybe just say whether or not that is at all possible. I'm going to ask this question. I know you're not going to answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Caleb, you've been acting CEO since February. Are you going to be the permanent CEO? What is happening in terms of that appointment? Because obviously you need a permanent CEO, and that has not been the case since February. Thank you.
Thank you. Last question from Dogozo.
Dogozo Kumalo from Newsroom Africa. Also, second question from Heidi. My question, in May we heard of the shortlist, just updates on that. And then second question, I think, to Mr. Bala and also on transmission, just the localization opportunities that lie within transmission and distribution network, but you know, the bottlenecks that do exist there to actually get local manufacturers in there. What is the issue? Are they not getting that demand from Eskom? What are really the bottlenecks there of localizing? Because we hear that, you know, localizing the sector would actually fast track us getting rid of load shedding. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just read through the questions that came through the colleagues that have connected virtually. From Shamila Fisher, from Hard FM News. I would like to know how long Eskom thinks it will take technicians to restore the electricity supply in areas in the Western Cape that has been left without power as a result of the recent storm. And Dan Southwood Walls from ESP Info. There's a significant delta in the planned risk level published between the week 34 and week 35 to week 38 system status reports. Can you let us know what changed to cause the planned risk level from December 2023 to deteriorate so significantly? From Carol Patton, News 24, can you please give us an update on the annual financial statements? Will they be tabled in Parliament by the 30th September, or is an extension required? Has management been given a timeline on the replacement of the CEO, and what are the plans of Mr. Kasim, whose contract comes to an end soon? Kanyisilen Ngobo, Times Live. If all goes well with the return of units at Kusile by year end, what stages of load shedding can South Africans expect? And lastly, from Lamiz Omariji, News 24, how many community co-ops be compatible with Eskom's revenue model? Thank you. Over to the panelists. Caleb?
Thanks, Daphne. Let me answer the questions that relate to the CEO and my contract. I think that's maybe the easier one. I think the first thing, obviously, there's a board process. The board is dealing with the appointment of the CEO. As you're aware, I have not applied in terms of the process of the CEO. I think the CFO role has still a lot of work that needs to be done and completed. And yes, I am in discussions with the board. And then in terms of the CEO and the timing, I guess the board will inform the public. On the CFO, we will have those discussions, and if it makes sense for me to look to extend my contract, I would consider it. But the discussions are ongoing. So I think that is the easy one from my side. Let me hand over to my colleagues to deal with the technical questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Caleb. Thanks to those questions. Let me start with the first one. for which units might result into higher stages of load shedding. I think it's difficult to say that because unless there are specific units that we know they've got a risk. But if I use the example of what just happened this week with Palmate, if I talked to you last week this time, I wouldn't have known that there would be such a disaster in Cape Town that will render Palmate inoperable. So without, not because the plant itself had issues. So that is the situation that we have, that unless we have major event or serious things happening on the same day or same week, like we have multiple boiler leaks in multiple stations like it happened in first week in July. So those are the typical things that might also tilt us. And then the last year's summer plan, I think my colleague also did have it on his presentation there. I will allow him to talk to that. In terms of the current EAF, we're currently sitting at about 55. Like I've indicated as well, that the impact there is because of also the Quebec that is running longer, and although we have seen that Quebec should have been back, but because of the longer period, we are still very low. Hence, we are driving so hard to return the Kusile unit. Because of their size, they've got a bigger impact on the EAF as well. So we are hoping that it will give us a better outlook once we are done with that. The plan for summer, we are planning on average about 10.5 in terms of the percentage for plan starting now, and then obviously in December, because the demands go down, we also try to maximize on that, and we are ramping up our plans to deal with that. And then also from Naledi, you were asking a question about the authorizations at Kusile. I did indicate that we have received, because remember the appeals, we have got authorizations to run with temporary stacks at Kusile. And then there was an appeal that came through both the minister and the district. So the minister has given us her decision yesterday on the appeal, but obviously the district still need to give it to us. We are hoping that if it doesn't come through, they were still going through their own processes yesterday and today. So I'm hoping that by tomorrow, latest Friday, we should get that type of decision from their side, and then we can start the unit. I think one thing that I also want to clarify as well, that Kusile, the only thing that is there is the sulfur part of it. The emissions, in terms of particulate emissions, those are still applicable because that systems of reducing particulate emissions has not been impacted by this. So it's only the sulfur that we are not able to remove from coal. And then there were some health plans that we have been asked to deal with. So I'm quite hopeful that the district will give us and the local municipality the authorizations to start the machines. Like I said, it's between, if we can get it today, then the team is ready. We will start with the commissioning of the boilers tonight as well. Yeah, maybe just to add on that, we're looking at about 24 to 36 hours because the boilers are cold, so are the turbines as well. But yeah, we should be, if we get authorization later today, we should be on load by the weekend. But let's bar any commissioning issues that might come since the machine has been standing for so long. And then the issue of theft at Kusile, I think the question is...
All right, Eskom executives just giving us an update on the state of our power grid in the country there at their head offices. That's Megawatt Park in Sunninghill. They basically are entrusting Kusile, as you heard from the Minister of Electricity, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa. About 2 weeks ago, he said Kusile is basically, the main answer in terms of ending load shedding in South Africa. So we heard from Peggy Nxumalo, the head of energy, as well well as the acting CEO at Eskom, who is also who is serving rather as the CFO as well, Khalib Kasim. They're talking about the fact that Gusile, you do remember that Unit 1 and 2 were switched back on those 2 weeks ago, giving us about 1,600 megawatts of power. In total, this power station has about 6 units that are about 800 megawatts of power each, and is expected to give us about 4,800 megawatts of power in the end. So at the moment, Unit 1 and 2 are on, and they are trusting that Unit 3, which was supposed to be switched back on in December, will actually be switched back on sooner than that. They're saying that Koeberg power station, which they had actually relied a lot on in terms of Unit 1, that is supposed to also be switched on by the beginning of November, is not giving the power utility the anticipated megawatts of power that they wanted. So they are putting their trust on Koeberg, because they're saying that that is the one that is giving them more better answers rather when it comes to our power station crisis, or our power crisis in South Africa. Tutuga power station will give us is supposed to give us 1,800 megawatts of power, and what the executives are saying is that at least currently it's giving us about 1,600 megawatts of power. We were given an update in terms of how many hours of unplanned outages we had during the winter season, starting from April 1st until the end of August this year. It was 43 hours of unplanned power. So if you look at what they've explained in terms of what 1 hour means in translation to megawatts, is that it's 1 hour, 1,000 megawatts. So that would be 43 hours. That's 43,000 megawatts of unplanned outages in the winter season. And they're saying they've been able to bring unplanned power cuts, or drop it to about 12,500 at the moment. So they sound positive. And then, of course, on the other end, when the media was asking questions to Khalib Kasim in terms of his term as acting CEO, he says he did not apply. So the Eskom board is currently deciding on who will take over from him as acting CEO and become the permanent CEO at Eskom. He says he's quite happy staying as the chief financial officer, because he thinks that that also is a very big job on its own. All right, we'll catch up with Heidi Jacos, of course, who's covering this particular press briefing for us, to give us more details in terms of what was said. Let's take you to a short